Awesome. So what was your initial inspiration behind writing a children's book?
So I am a teacher. I've taught kindergarten for a long time. Now I teach second grade. And I've been around so many children's books. So I'm like, one day I want to write a children's book. And of course, something very close to me is lacrosse. So once I got the idea, I just like kind of hit the ground running. But it's been a dream of mine for probably the last 10 years. So,
Very cool. Awesome. Um, so I this question is interesting because I feel like sometimes there's like a light switch goes off in certain decisions in life. So I'm wondering, did a light switch go off for you and you're like, I am writing this book? Was there a certain moment where you decided that you were going to move forward with this?
yeah, so last spring, so in the middle of lacrosse season, I was on spring break from school, and my school did some like professional development thing where about like children's books, and I was just like, I'm gonna do it. And I kind of just like had this idea, and then I wrote the manuscript, and I was like, this is really good. Like, I like this. And I talked to my fiance at the time, now husband, because I got married last summer. And I was like, I want to write this book. So once I decided to do it, like I just, you know, tried to like work. There's a process in it, but it was over spring break during lacrosse season where I'm like, I'm doing this. Like instead of just thinking, I'm gonna actually do it.
Awesome. And you said it was professional development. Was it like a conference or what was that exact
Um,
like?
it was just like I'm gonna call it like a class. Like sometimes we take things for like credits, just not like college credits, but like professional development sessions. And one of them was like publishing children's books. And it was kind of like no one else in the group, there was like 15 of us, did it except for me. Like I was like, now I'm doing it. Like, one of the teachers did it in the past. So she gave us pointers on how to publish. And then I was just like, I'm doing it. Like, this is it. This is my sign.
Awesome. That's awesome. So after you made that decision, what were the steps that you had to take to get the process to get the ball rolling? Obviously, you said you had the manuscript, but what else went into that?
Yeah. So I wrote the manuscript. I showed it to some of my friends, my husband. I, made sure it sounded good. Then at first, I didn't want to self-publish. I was trying to bring it to a traditional publisher. So I was writing letters to agents, and it was just like a lot. And I realized that if I self-published, which means I did it myself, I could do it in the time I want. So I wanted it done for this spring, like this past spring. And if you go through a regular publisher, it could take years. And I was a little impatient in that sense, but also like, it's kind of like I wanted to do it and do it my way, but sometimes if you go with a regular publisher, they'll change it. They'll, you know, fix things. So I decided the summer, we got married in August. So from like April to August, I was like trying to get a traditional publisher and like sending my manuscript. And I didn't hear of anything. So I reached out to an illustrator that I liked, and they were like, yeah, we'll do it. So then the week I got back from my honeymoon, we started the process at the end of August. And I worked with my illustrator. She's wonderful, Madison Ferdman. Um, I worked with her, and in the fall we did like she did a sketch. We went back and forth like, so at first she had the lacrosse goals looking like rounded soccer nets, and the sticks weren't right, and like and she had a square instead of like a round crease. So like, even though I sent her inspiration pictures, she sent back the sketch, and we went back and forth because I really wanted to make it look like lacrosse, you
Mhm.
know? Um, so we did all that. And then the book was finished by January, February, and I put it out for pre-order in the very end of January, and it came out April 2nd. So it was really crazy. I used Ingram Spark, which is a print on demand company, and I used Amazon. So there's two. It was a little complicated being a self-publisher, but I'm really happy with it. The book is awesome. So
Awesome. And you're on Barnes and Noble, I believe.
yes, so through Ingram Spark, it's on
Okay.
Barnes and Noble, Walmart.com, Target.com, all online. And then I was in a local bookstore by me. Yes. And I've sold 300, about like a little bit over 300 copies. So
Sweet.
yeah.
Awesome. Have most of those been online, or like what's the breakdown on that?
Yeah, they almost all of them are online. You know, right now, so I have, my friends and family and like people's friends that have bought them, but like now I need like a bigger reach, which is why, I originally like reached out to you and like lacrosse people to really get it out there because I'm not like a influencer, like social media person. I'm just a teacher, and a lacrosse coach. Um, but I want to reach more people to show them, like Rosie's lacrosse story, like here's a picture book for your young child, like your little lacrosse player, anyone that likes sports. Um, so right now, I think the hardest part for me is just getting it out there because the people that see it love it, but like if people don't know about it, they don't know about it.
Mhm.
So,
Well, hey, you are an influencer because you are a teacher. So
yeah, the very true.
awesome. Um, so I'm a writer and a journalist, and so I think for people that aren't, it can be a little daunting to like put your stuff out there and have people edit it and give you feedback. How was that for you? Was it when people were like, I don't know if this makes sense, or I would change this? How is that process for you?
So I used two editors. For this book, it was my friends that are like one is a professional ghostwriter. So like
Hmm.
she like for her company, and then the other one is another teacher. So I showed the book to a few friends that are teachers. They gave me some like great feedback on like different things to like and like just like a word here or there. And then I sent the manuscript to my two friends. They both did some like grammar things, just to like, I missed a comma.
Hmm.
I,
Come on, teacher.
like little things, but it wasn't like everyone really enjoyed it, so it wasn't like a bad process. um just fixing up maybe like the wording. Oh, they were like, oh, maybe switch this here. And then for me as a teacher, like my one friend that's the professional writer for her company, she had it very proper. And I'm like, well, it's a children's book, so it needs to have a little less of this. And then my friend that's the teacher that edited was like, no, you're right, we'll do it this way. So like I kind of worked with them. But it was all good. And even when they edited, like I'm like, good, like let's make sure. And it's short. Like I don't know if you've seen it, but like it's not like there's a ton of words,
Mhm.
in the editing. It's like, you know.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it was great. My friends were great. Um, and you have to realize like they're just trying to help you. If you messed up
Mhm.
something or something sounded off, it's like, no, this is better.
Yes. Awesome. For the illustrator, did did she have any type of connection to the sport of lacrosse, or
She does not. She was a field hockey player.
okay?
Um, And when I like got connected with her, I originally reached out to an illustrator agency, um, because I liked a different illustrator that illustrated a lot of children's books that I read to my students. And I was like, I love her illustrations. I want something like that. And I reached
Mhm.
out to the agency, and one, since she's a little more known, she was very expensive. Um, and two, she wasn't available. She was doing a project. So the agent was like, check out all of the other people in our agency and see if anyone catches your eye. So Madison, like, I loved her illustrations. She had the look I was going for. She's from Nashville. She was young, and another girl. So I was like, you know what? I would love her. So I emailed and I was like, these three caught my eye, but Madison is my top. If she's available, let me know. And then once I met her, we just hit it off, and like she's been super easy to work with. And like as I said, she sent the character description, like she sent Rosie, so this is Rosie. She sent her like character description, and like then we did the sketches, and we just like worked together. We did a lot of Zooms. And it was still an investment, like an investment for
Mm.
me, but it was so worth it. So,
Awesome. So as far as the writing process goes, how did you choose the name Rosie? Do you have a connection with that name, or how did that come about?
I don't have a connection to the name Rosie, but my name is Rachel, and it
Okay.
starts with the letter R, and I just wanted like a cute name, and like, I wanted a redhead because I'm a redhead. And she's like rosy cheeks, and then like I was like Rosie, and my husband was like, yeah, Rosie, like rosy cheek, and I was like, oh, that's perfect. So it ended up just being Rosie, and I love it. Like it's a perfect name for her and the character. So that's how I ended up coming up with Rosie. It started with the letter R, and then it all just worked out.
Awesome. So as far as writing the story, how did you choose a plot line for it? How did all of like the details of a book like really come together for that?
So Rosie's lacrosse story is very loosely based on my own personal lacrosse story. So just a little background. I'm from New Jersey, but when I played lacrosse in high school, like I was a freshman in 2006. Like we didn't have youth programs. Like there was no youth lacrosse. So I started lacrosse. I went to Monmouth University camp in 8th grade, and I was like, okay, this is really fun. I played soccer my whole entire life, and I played my high school had like freshman JV varsity, so I played, freshman soccer, freshman basketball, and I did freshman lacrosse. And I was like, I'm not the best soccer player. Like there's girls that are so much better. I'm very athletic, but like they have been on travel teams forever. I'm very short. Basketball is not my sport. Lacrosse, I like loved it. Like the second I started playing, I loved the sport. My freshman coach was awesome. It was a great experience. So come that next school year and summer, every day after soccer practice, I went home, I played wall ball. You know, I would play with my friends all through the winter. All I did was practice. And like that's like the plot of Rosie's story is like she finds lacrosse, she likes it, and she practices and she practices. Um, and then for me, obviously different than the children's book, I made varsity my sophomore year. I was the only sophomore in my high school to make varsity. Then one other did end up coming up, but like that was big at the time. It was only juniors and seniors. Um, so essentially Rosie's story is the elementary school version of a little girl that's like maybe not the best at her first sport, but tries a new one and then loves it and practices and works hard. And then, at the end, it's like she scores the goal and it's like, all great. So essentially, my own personal experience like drove this plot. And kind of so like all kids see like you can try something new, and if you practice at it like you'll get better. um, and I tell that to my players. Like I coach high school and I coach travel team, and I'll tell them that like even if you're not good right now as a freshman, like practice, play wall ball, do this. And like I went to college, I played lacrosse at University of New Haven. It's a Division II school, and I became an All-American. But I only started playing my freshman year of high school, really. And it just takes that practice. So essentially, Rosie's the little kid version, because in this story, she's probably in like third, fourth grade, but it's that whole concept, like try something new and then practice, and you'll be great.
Awesome. And So I haven't read the book, but I read the description on Amazon, and so without giving away too many details, does it does the book build up to her first game, like at the end of the?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
okay, awesome,
So
very cool,
just one game. Um,
awesome,
yeah. So as I said, it's a very little kid version of my like that's how I came up with the plot. I'm like, well, this is like what I did. So how do I make this into like a little kid, appropriate elementary school book? Um, yeah. So
very cool, awesome. How long did it take you to write the book?
to write it, like the manuscript without editing, like maybe like 2 weeks of like coming up with the story, but then to do the whole process, I mean, that was a couple months of like tweaking and all of that. And then from start to finish of manuscript, coming up with that until publishing, it was a year
Okay, it's a long
because,
time.
yeah. So, because, I did that, I did a lot of reaching out to agents. Once I got with my illustrator, that was about August to April. So, a little bit shorter, but like, the whole part first is the manuscript and all of that. So, it was
Awesome,
a year.
very cool, awesome. Um, so you really went into detail on this earlier, but was there anything that you might have missed about being a self-author and what that kind of entails? Like, as far as the financial investment as a self-author, does that all come from you? Whereas if you were with an agent, would they cover part of that, or how does that all work?
Um, it all comes from me. I recently got married this summer, so my husband was very supportive. And he's like, if you want to do this, like we can do this. So the big investment was the illustrator. And then there's other costs that you don't really realize. Like I had to copyright it. I had to buy an ISBN, which is the number on the back of the book that like makes your book a book. Um, I've had to buy like little like I feel like there's just been like little expenses of like even just trying to get the right book. I have them in the other room, but I have like 7 different copies of Rosie because when they would print wrong. So me and Madison would have to go back and fix the specs of like the pages and like, so I ordered so many on both Amazon and Ingram Spark because I use both printing platforms. And the reason I did that was because Ingram is found at Barnes and Noble, Target.com, Walmart, all these other online places. And they did a pre-order. So a pre-order allowed me to like post it in February and people could order it. And then in April, it all came out. Where Amazon doesn't have that, and Amazon didn't have a hardcover option. But Amazon, uh, it's it's easier when Amazon uses Amazon.
Mhm.
So it's easier, it's easily accessible for everyone else. But the margins are very tiny. Like, and I didn't do this to like make a lot of money. I really did this to like grow the game
Mhm.
of lacrosse and like women's sports. And, you know, I'm a teacher and all I wanted to do was like share my love for lacrosse with my students because they always ask me, like, I talk about lacrosse, and they're like, what's lacrosse? And I'm like, oh, Google, like, let's pull up a lacrosse stick. And, so now I have a book that does this. And I'll get into a little more about it with your other questions.
Sweet, sounds good. Um, so you just mentioned some of the challenges about like misprints and stuff like that, and like we've designed shirts for lacrosse extras, and the misprints are so annoying. So I can't imagine how those were for a book. I bet those were pretty annoying.
I had one of the most terrible misprints. It was so embarrassing. So a lot of my students have would buy the book and
Mm,
they would bring it to me and I'd sign it in class. And so the misprints all happened before. I
mhm,
didn't know that they could happen after the book was
mm,
out, published. And they brought me this book, this hardcover, And the mom put it in my teacher mailbox. She's like a PTA mom. They were here for like some PTA event. She wrote a note on it like, please sign for so and so. So I get it and I open it and it's another book inside my book, like the whole book printed. And I was just like, oh my goodness, like whatever. And I felt so bad. And like she laughed about it. And I was just like, I ended up contacting the website and it's like a rare but can happen for all self-published like print on demand things. So essentially she just had to like return it to Amazon
Mm-hmm.
and I had extra books at my house so I signed it for the kid and I was just like return it, keep your money. This book is like, just write like what happened and the website will check. But that was, I hope that that does not happen to anyone because I knew them. But I'm like, I don't want that to happen to a stranger, which is
Mm-hmm.
why my goal now, like my goal is to get it traditionally published and find that. But, and it is possible to do now that it's published. So now I'm going back and I'm writing to agents to try and get this book traditionally published. So
Awesome, very cool. Were there any other challenges that you faced in the process?
I would say the printing was probably the trickiest the trickiest thing, just dealing with all of that. That was like a big learning curve.
Sure, awesome. Um, so who all helped you or who all encouraged you to write this book? You mentioned your fiance, now husband, fellow teachers. Were there any certain individuals that really stuck out as you look back?
I mean, really just I'm gonna say my friends. My friends, they were super excited. And I kind of honestly kept it quiet for a while because I was very self-conscious about it. I just wanted it to be good,
Hmm.
so I didn't really share with too many people at first until like I got the book in my hands. Like I kind of kept it quiet. Like my husband knew I was doing it and like my like good friends and like a couple friends that were helping. But until I got like this, like I had it, then I like really told people. So I kind of kept it quiet for a little bit.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Um, so the book was released on April 2nd, according to Amazon. Is that the correct
Yeah.
date?
Yes.
Okay. What were your emotions and feelings building up to April 2nd? Because, like, obviously you're publishing a book, and you mentioned you're just doing this to help grow the game. You're not trying to make money off of it. So I
Yeah.
would think that you had an immense amount of pride with the book
Yeah.
coming out. But what all, like, were you nervous? What all were the feelings like?
I mean, I was so nervous. I was excited. I was just like, I hope everyone likes it. You know, it was it was a surreal day. I will say here's one more thing I learned in self-publishing. So it came out April 2nd and it did not arrive for anyone. It was supposed to arrive. Everyone had it coming tomorrow, and it was like 3 or 4 days late for everyone. So that was also like I was like panicking. I'm like, oh my God, everyone's supposed to get it. And then I'm like, no one got it. Oh my God, no one got the book. Like that. So that was a little stressful until like April 4th and 5th, and then the books started to arrive. Um, but up until that day, I was like very excited. You know, couldn't wait. And then once people got it, and like it was so awesome, I got pictures, from my friends with their kids in the book, and like people that I haven't talked to in years, like from high school, got the books for their kids and would like send me a picture of their child reading the book. And they're like, Rach, this is awesome. Congrats. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, thank you so much. And it was just awesome, like, to see so many different people really love the book. And like I'm 32, so like a lot of my friends are either just having kids or have kids that are in this like, you know, 0 to 5 range. So like they all just want to have books for their kids and like it was awesome. So
Very cool. Were there any amount of nerves in regard to, like, is anyone going to buy the book? Like, was there any of that going on?
I mean, I'm still feeling that now. Um, I know you haven't read the book. I'll show you a little bit. So the book, um, just like here, so it's all like it's a fiction book, so there is a lot of lacrosse, but then at the back, something that was really important to me was to have some nonfiction. So there's some
Okay.
lacrosse in real life, and I'm very lucky to coach with Meg Dowdy. So this whole page is about Meg Dowdy on Team USA. Um, and so I've been really, she's a little more quiet when it comes to like promoting, but I was really excited to have her on board. And I know that like when she's done, like we were just in our travel season and now she's playing with professional lacrosse. Um, but I'm excited for, once things start moving, hopefully later this summer, like I'll be able to involve her more and like do that because as I said, a lot of it is just like getting it out there. Like
Mm,
my friends love it, but I want like other people to know
for
about
sure.
it and see this book. So,
I'm sure it'll be interesting too as the years go on because I'm sure it'll have like peaks. Like it might have a month where it has a lot of cells, and you're like, where did this come from? You know? So I'm sure
yeah,
that'll be pretty exciting
I know.
to
I'm hoping
watch.
like back to school, Christmas,
Mm,
like good
yeah.
gifts. I've given this already at like 4 or 5 baby showers, you know.
A little
So,
self promotion. Awesome. Um, so you mentioned the feedback, and I did see one video that you posted on Instagram was it was like a compilation of reviews and whatnot. Can you
yeah.
like sum up the feedback? Like how has it been as a whole, and then what's the most heartwarming message you've gotten?
Um, so I think overall the feedback is first, everyone loves these illustrations. They're bright, they're beautiful. Madison did an awesome job. So a lot of great things about the illustrator. Um, a lot of people just love that it's a story about lacrosse because when I say there are no books about lacrosse that are fiction for kids, there are literally none. There's a
Mm,
couple chapter books, there's a couple, nonfiction ones, but this was it really is one of the first. So there was a lot of like, this is awesome to have a book about lacrosse, and the female lead. So Rosie is a female sports player. There's a lot of books with boys that play sports and not as many with all girls. So, and another thing I've heard from some people is that they love that it's diverse. Like on the cover, I made sure that we have so everyone can see themselves. We have someone in a wheelchair. Everyone just looks so that anyone that picks up the book can see themselves playing in the
mhm.
game. So I've gotten really good feedback. I think just some of my favorites are seeing and hearing like my kids love this book. The grown-ups, I love that they love it, but I want the kids to love it.
For
So,
sure. Awesome. Um, what has it been like? You mentioned the like people you went to high school with that you haven't heard of or haven't heard from in a while. What has it been like when just people out of the blue like message you about the book and have good things to say?
I mean, I like that like makes me so happy because I love it that like my friends support me and, but then when there's people and it's not that like, I'm not friends with them at all. It's just, you don't see people as much and then they say something, it's super nice. I had another friend whose husband or whose boyfriend bought the book for their daughter and she's my yoga instructor. And she was like, "How did you find that book?" And he's like, "I saw it on Amazon." And she messaged me and was like, "Oh, like this whole thing." And it was like the whole connection. It's like, it's really cool to hear just like kind of people, I don't know, that like it that that I don't know, as personally. Cause she was like, he loved it. He like randomly bought it and saw it. And then she saw it at his house or something. Like it was just like, wow, that's awesome.
That's cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
Um, so you are a teacher, second grade. Does the book have a prominent place in your classroom where you can see it at all times?
Yes, it did this year. It will in this upcoming year. So I taught kindergarten for a long time, and this past year I got moved to second grade with some school rearranging, and so I had some of these students in kindergarten. So like they were like so pumped. Like my kindergarten and second grade teacher wrote this book, whole thing. I gave a set to my whole entire class. On one of we had like an author's tea because they self-published their own book about what they want to be when they grow up. And I gave them all one of Rosie and they were so pumped. So I have like Rosie coloring sheets. Like I have like pages that we've colored. So
Okay.
they were very into it. I actually, before I published, I wanted to get a test run. So I did show it to friends. But before it had color, it was black and white. I actually said, boys and girls, my friend wrote a book. I was like, do you want to read it? And I read the book to them and then I asked them all their feedback. And they loved, like, they liked it. It was like before, like right before we added the color. So like and then I finally told them like, this is my book, when it published. So they were super excited. And next year I have another group of second graders that I also I'll have some returning kindergartners and like they all bought, like they were so excited that I wrote it. So it will definitely be in the classroom. I know my principal is very excited. So yeah, it's cool. And I've read it to a lot of kids in our school. You can't, being in a public school, I don't do like promotion of it, just because you can't really do that. But like I shared it with, my class and the other classes and they were pumped. And if they wanted to buy it on their own, they could. I can't tell them to.
Yeah.
So
You can't say you have to buy this book for the school year.
yeah.
Um,
So I did give it to my whole class. I bought them each a copy. They were super excited.
awesome. So where does it sit in the classroom? Is it like up against the whiteboard or like how does that?
I just had it on my bookshelf. Like I have a
Okay.
bookshelf that like has a bunch of books and it was just on there. They would point it out to everyone that came into the room that was like new. Like Mrs. Malooly wrote this book.
Very cool. So will there be a second piece? Will the story continue? Will she be in middle school or high school, or will there be another book about like a field hockey story or anything like
So
that?
so my goal, like my big goal, would be one to get it picked up by a traditional publisher. As I said, I've been writing to agents because to get into a publisher, you need an agent. Like that's some of the steps. But the book, you'll see it's a new sport, Rosie's lacrosse story. I have two ideas. Like it's like, do I want a new sport, so and so's field hockey story, a new sport, so and so's basketball story, and then like it could be one day another like more Rosie. Um, but I would like to do girls in sports. I know this is a lacrosse podcast, but like I think girls in sports are really important. I want to grow the game of lacrosse, but like all sports are really important too. And to just grow the game, like trying something new. Um, and I'm sure I don't know about you or like, but a lot of us play so many different sports growing up. So I want kids to have, especially girls. So,
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, so my name is David, and I used to read I can't remember the exact title when I was in elementary school, but it was like David Gets in Trouble or something.
oh no, David.
Yes, that, yeah. And so there are like so many of those books, and so we would read those. But yeah, those are so very cool. Um, is there anything that you would like to add? Anything that we missed or anything that you would like to go into more detail on?
Um, I really hope that, people get to see this book and like buy it for their families, for their young kids. I know a lot of my friends' kids just love it. They love the story of Rosie and how she worked hard and, achieved a goal at like, I won't give away the ending, but um, the story is really important. And if you love lacrosse, this is a great way to, grow the game. Like learning through literature is super important. And like a lot of kids, like they might not have lacrosse in the area or know what it is. And then, you read this book and they're like, wow, this sport is cool, you know? And something that I really want to do, and I'm going to try and reach out to teams for, is to have the older girls take some initiative and read this to the younger girls. So I had my high school lacrosse team read it to the elementary school, and they brought their sticks, they brought their goggles and mouth guards, and then they read the book and they showed them about lacrosse. And like I know like college teams and other high school teams maybe want community service or want to do things, and I feel like having a book like this for the sport of lacrosse is a good way to get kids involved, or to grow the game by not just me or like a grown up reading the book, but having like you know the lacrosse players right now reading a book about lacrosse to young lacrosse players. Um, so that is like my vision of Rosie's lacrosse story, is having the older lacrosse girls read it to the new ones.